A better alternative. Giving Pittsburgh a better alternative. Yeah. Extra, reading the issue. Raw news, unapologetic, no tissue. Catch the wave, the flow for certain. Nothing pull you in like a Pittsburgh current. Free from influence, nothing less than. No flexing, aim for aggression. We cover news, politics, art forms, and entertainment that comes in all sources.
Good morning, America. I think we're live from Sorgatron Media on Broadway Avenue in the heart of the Beachview Business District. This is the Pittsburgh Current Podcast. We apologize for our lateness today. We had some technical difficulties, some of which we'll talk about here soon, just because they'll kind of go in with our topic today with our guest, Gab Bonesso, who will be bringing on here in just a second. Before we do, I want to talk about a couple things. First of all, new issue of the Pittsburgh Current is on the streets today. We have Atia Irving Mitchell she has a great story on entitled Ice Storm. We're looking at the immigration issues here in the city of Pittsburgh. Also, I want to take just a second. As everybody knows, we've been doing this about a year now, and I wanted to thank everyone. And I know I've done this before, but we recently received our readership numbers from a first media audit of our existence here, and our readership numbers are better than I ever could have hoped. Everything that I hoped that this paper would be for our readers, it looks like it's becoming, and I can't thank you guys enough for reading and for staying with us. And we're going to continue to get better and grow as we move on. But we'll be obviously bragging about those numbers more in some formal posts and such later. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Also great going on at the Pittsburgh Current is we have a new columnist. We have a new personality with us, Gab Bonesso. Gab, welcome to the show.
Charlie, thanks for having me, and thanks for having me with the Pittsburgh Current. I'm so pumped.
No, we're excited too. Gab became available. I'm not sure why, but thank you to those who let her be available. Because I've wanted to work with Gab for a while, and it's great. And the reasons being, of course, is number one, she will now be writing our This Tastes Funny. Our former managing editor, Haley Frederick, as we all know, she left a few weeks ago. She went to work for the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, which is, working for a nonprofit like that is sort of her dream job. So we're really happy for Haley, but that left an opening, and we figure who eats with comedians probably more than a comedian.
Right.
So we got Gab, and she'll also be doing a column on everything, basically right, from comedy to current affairs to mental illness, which is something she wrote about today. So Gab, let's talk a little bit about the column that we just put up this morning at pittsburghcurrent.com, in which you talk about the scapegoating of folks with mental illness for these mass shootings.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for letting me write about such a divisive topic. Yeah. I know that a lot of people are probably going to hate me, but I don't care. It was really a bummer to see that being the narrative after two mass shootings in 24 hours, right? Like, that's the narrative, not a ban on assault rifle, nothing like that. It's we have to talk about mental health issues in our country. And it just does feel very gaslighting to those of us who do have mental health issues. I always say people with mental illness are not really ill if they're acknowledging their mental illness and they're working on it. We're actually, I would think, more mentally healthy than a lot of people who don't even acknowledge maybe they should. Exactly. And I've never understood this idea of getting a yearly physical of your body but not one of your brain. I mean, I think it's really arrogant for people to think that they have no mental health issues and nothing will ever happen in their life that could cause a mental health issue. So I just think it's a really unfair and ignorant narrative to throw out in a time of tragedy, and it just blocks us from talking about the stuff that's really an issue.
Right. Which, of course, is the fact that you can buy these weapons. A weapon that killed 9 people in less than killed 9 people and injured 24 in less than a minute. before police. I mean, police were there. They got there quickly. They responded quickly. Less than a minute, he killed 9 and injured 24. How do you think? What do you think goes on in the minds of our politicians when they initially think, something like this happens? I have to think that at this point it's a concerted effort to protect their views or their interests, I would think, because it's kind of hard to keep sort of banging the drum that it's not the guns when it's continuously the guns.
It's obviously the guns. And I think in a weird way, they think if they hide behind mental health, it's like their attempt at being woke. Like they're like, no, we see it, mental health. But it's like, no, you're never going to do what really needs to happen for mental health.
Because they want to pretend like they're helping. Like they want to pretend like, oh my God, we have to do something about these poor, sick folks. And that's the angle they take, but it really is. It's scapegoating, pure and simple.
Without a doubt. And this idea that, I mean, especially the shooter in Texas, like we know he went in there with a racist agenda, and you're going to say that's mental. I mean, I don't believe racism is a mental health disorder. I think it's a personality disorder.
Right.
I think it's entitlement disorder. I think I mentioned this in the column. Like the thing that really gets me is when it's a angry white man, we say we got to talk about mental health.
Right.
But if it's a young black kid involved in gang violence, we never want to have that, when actually that would be the proper narrative, right?
Right.
An entire group of people who a systematic racism, and I would think there would be a lot of PTSD and mental health issues in that community, but we don't have that conversation then. We're only having it when it's an angry white man who's shooting us with assault weapons.
Right. I mean, nobody when Cleveland police rolled up on Tamir Rice, they didn't wonder, I wonder if he's a little depressed today.
Right.
Meanwhile, the kid has a toy gun. He was being a kid, and they in those instances, he must be getting ready to perpetrate a crime. He's not hurting inside. I
mean, locally, our poor Antoine Rose. I mean, this kid is, guilty without a jury. And then people who actually knew him within the community, like Giselle Fetterman, posting her side of his life, and then people being like, don't say he's a nice kid.
Right.
Could we ever talk about mental health in these communities?
Right.
Maybe that would be the narrative then, but no. Only when it's a white guy in a Walmart.
Right. A young black male who has lived a clean, exemplary life. He's in a bad situation that day. We don't talk about wrong place, wrong time, and we don't want to talk about maybe there was something going on with him that kind of led him to that instance of that. Who knows? I mean, I'm just speculating, but nobody brings it up.
But we don't get to talk about that in that case. But, obviously 24 hours, 2 mass shootings, it has to be mental health.
Right.
Can't be the guns.
Right.
Can't be returned to the assault ban. I mean, we need it, but...
And the Tree of Life shooting, again, was that mental health? He literally went there to kill Jews.
Right.
I mean...
Anti-Semitism, I
that
do not
seems
believe
like
is a
racism
mental health
to me.
disorder.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
It's not mental health. Yeah, it's really, and it's just very hurtful to people with mental health disorder. I mean, like I think I also wrote in the column, like I'm an empath, not a psychopath. Like you know what I mean? People with mental health issues who are working on them, I think, are some of the most sensitive people out there, and I just, and I would never go buy a gun. I know better.
Right.
When I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, my therapist gave me a book about bipolar, and she was like, you should also give it to your mother. I gave it to my mother, and within a week, my mother sold every handgun in our house.
Wow.
They were my father's. He had passed away, but she was like, why tempt you? Because it's not about murder. It's about suicide,
Exactly.
And I think that's the sadder reality about gun violence and people with mental health. It's usually we're taking our own lives. It's not going out there and killing people for their race. Yeah, it was really disturbing. And people I actually respected, like that was their first post on Facebook. We need to talk about mental health. And I'm just like, I can't even. But you don't want to talk about it when we every day of the year.
Yeah, no, you just want to yell, let's talk about guns, motherfucker, please.
Exactly. It's just crazy. And it's like these ideas, they're coming for my guns. No, we just don't think these particular rifles that can kill people in a second should be on the market for everybody.
I had an idea for a story that I wanted, kind of an idea, not really probably anything I would do because I will never get a handgun, but I wanted to live 3 months or a year as quote unquote good guy with a gun. I was going to get a hat and a little badge, just a good guy with a gun, and wear a couple 6-shooters or something like that. But I didn't know how that would go over, because we need to talk about mental health, and I thought I could bring attention to the fact.
Right. Yeah.
I'm dressed like Yosemite Sam. Maybe that is a mental health issue.
Yeah, half the population will be like, "Yeah, brother," and then the other half will be getting up and leaving. Like
exactly.
I was at Starbucks and a guy came in with a gun on his, and I was just like, I don't want to be here now.
I know, right? No, you've been in those situations, and it's like, what the hell? Or, I mean.
And they
I
think
don't know.
we're very right. We're the sensitive, weak.
Right. Yeah. Right.
We're the snowflakes who can't handle seeing a gun.
You're carrying a gun. You're waiting to you're looking to throw down.
Right.
Who's got the problem?
It's terrifying. It's truly terrifying.
Mental health issues are definitely at play, but I think it has to do with our politicians.
Exactly. And like I said, if we were going to talk about, the grieving families, if we we're going
Right.
to get into that, or the incident in Times Square where the motorcycle backfires, everyone assumes it's another mass shooting. They're panicking. I mean, we have a society with PTSD, but we can't talk about that.
Right. And that was a great point too. And when you go read the column, we're not going to give it all to you, but that was a great point. We as a nation are probably suffering from some level of PTSD.
I know I am.
Right.
I mean, that weekend I had to go to Market District Giant Eagle, and I was like, I don't want to do this today.
Yeah.
I'm just like scared anymore.
I don't need elk burgers that badly.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
To the Market District. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that, and then of course the president's response to go again, just like happened here in Pittsburgh. He was asked not to come to the cities. No, please, it's okay. Stay there.
Come.
But he came, and what did you make of that whole scene? He was a little too happy to be there, in my opinion.
I don't think he ever fully grasps anything that isn't him. Like he's just, I'm here, so now everything's great. And it's like, no, your mere presence isn't going to fix this, sir. I know you think so.
In fact, it's going to make it worse.
He's still a reality star. You know what I mean? It's still the red carpet. It's not a press junket. It's just, it's really disturbing. And the crazy part is, and I always say this, if he had never run for president, I don't think I'd have any anger towards him. I'd just be like, that character, that rich, nutty nut who does The Apprentice. Right. But now you've really ruined the best country on earth. And I'm not going to allow this as a citizen of the United States. I'm a little angry. My immigrant grandparents wanted to come here for a better life. And, and they were allowed back then. So.
Yeah, so was his.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is just...
And his wife.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he really he misses the boat on a lot of things, in my opinion. I try not to be mean about him, but it's hard not to.
It's not. I sort of adopted a policy a little bit probably at least around 2016, that it was you almost have to, on some level, at least this is my opinion, and something that I've been glad to do, which is stoop down a little bit. I feel like there are people sort of in every movement that need to represent sort of the extremes of those movements, just so, because it's there has to be someone to get, because sometimes people only hear that kind of verbiage and that kind of, and based on mail I've received, people definitely have heard me. So it's I mean, I certainly don't agree that's not good for long-term political discourse at all, but it's tough to not sometimes just try and fight fire with fire. And some people say, well, getting down on their level doesn't help, but sometimes it does. But not that I advocate everybody doing that, but it's just, I really don't know how to respond. I think a lot of times.
I mean, so much of, and I hate to be cruel, but a lot of his fan base, I find, he preys on the ignorant, right? He preys on people who maybe aren't intellectual. Maybe that would be the word I would use. And it's cruel. I mean, this idea he's going to bring back coal mining and things that are just not coming back, and if they did, it would ruin. I mean, the earth is going to turn into a ball of fire faster than we would like it, and it already is because of everything he has stopped caring about. I mean, I'm terrified for anyone I know who has little children. I'm just like, if he is the president again, I mean,
teens today are pissed too. I have a niece and a nephew who are in my life quite a bit, and we have a high school student who job shadows with us. and they get pissed at, like, they go right off on the environment about how we put it all up for them, and hey, thanks for nothing. And they're very rabid about the environment. So the good news is the change is coming. The bad news is there might not be any planet for them to run, unfortunately.
Right.
But
We may have done too much damage. Sorry, kids. Yeah, it's really, really. I actually, a young girl I recently was doing like a free show at a park for kids. And she basically said to me, I hope you come to my school to do mental health awareness, because this summer we got a packet about what we're supposed to do if there's an active shooter. And now I have anxiety. And I'm like, but they're not giving you packets on mental health awareness. You know what I mean? They're
exactly.
just like, here you go, kids. And this is what you need to do to make sure there's not a shooting at your school. Like, it's the kids' responsibility.
Right.
Be a good citizen, it said on the package.
Be a good citizen. Just, and if you think about the whole good guy with a gun thing. So, I mean, we apparently, when there was all the school shootings, they want to arm teachers.
Right.
So I think we need to actually arm undocumented immigrants, because they're currently being targeted, and we need to arm, people of color, because they're, they need to have a chance to defend themselves. And we've shown that there's no other way to defend yourself unless you get a gun and become a shooter for the good guys.
Yeah.
It's depressing.
It's so
Depressing.
It really is.
But it's not depressing. Free mulch. And I want to tell you today, you wonder how I segued there,
Yeah, that was
Gab.
amazing.
I want to tell you today about a great program. Chip Drop. Chip Drop helps gardeners get free mulch from local neighborhood tree companies. Using local natural mulch in your garden is the best way to stop weeds and help your plants while saving money. You can sign up at chipdrop.com. And I want to thank Chip Drop for sponsoring the podcast today and for being one of our advertisers. And again, free mulch, you can't beat that with a stick. Get it? See what I did there?
That
with
was
a stick.
amazing.
But I'm not a comedian. Gab is. So
I've been told.
No, you're very funny. Like, I've seen you before, and I think everybody is probably a lot of people I know have seen your stand up. How did you get into comedy? Was it a bit of a therapeutic sort of move for you, or? That's
a really good question. Not intentionally. I got into comedy because when I was graduating Duquesne University with a degree in theater, which really made sense, spend $35,000 a year to not make money. My mentor at the time was sort of like, just giving me some life advice, because I was like, I don't know if I should move to New York, move to LA. And he was like, the thing is, you are a character actress and you're 22 years old, so you're not going to get work for a good 18 years. He's like, however, you won a few playwriting contests, you won a few directing contests. What if you did stand-up comedy? You're really funny. That way it would be like a one-woman show that you sort of write. And I took that advice, and at the time there was a guy who had graduated from Duquesne named Jesse Joyce, who was a really well-known comedian in Pittsburgh at the time. And so he had invited me to see him at the Funny Bone, and I immediately was like, nah, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
It was all guys talking about their junk, and it was just the same jokes over and over. And I'm like, this isn't what I want to do.
Right.
And so, like, a year or two after that, my one older brother was like, he was trying to encourage me to do it. And the Funny Bone was having a contest. He's like, why don't we just both sign up? We'll both sign up. We'll do the contest, and we'll see what happens. And so I signed up, and then I find out a week before he never signed up.
Oh,
he totally
really?
played me, didn't sign up. So I go do this contest. It's my first time ever doing stand-up. I didn't even write material. I literally wrote it on the way to the gig at my sister's Geo Metro. Her friend was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I guess I better write some jokes. And I made it to the finals on my very first time. So I was like, okay, there's something I like about this, but I didn't like the way the other comedians would tell me how to be a comedian. Like, you have to learn 5 minutes of stand-up and do the same 5 minutes. And I'm like, that's not art. I just came from a theater background. And so early on, I just never understood the philosophy and mentality of the club situation. Right away, got my own room at Club Cafe and just started like doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And I was I'm a manic depressive. Okay. So the manic part is like the driving force.
Sure.
So at 22 years old, I'm like, I'm pretty good at this. I just started sending out press releases, cold calling the Post Gazette. I'm like, I'm this young girl and I do and so I'm getting all this press, all these like 30, 40-year-old comedians who've been doing it for 15 years are like, we hate her. And I just was like, just this ostracized being the entire time. And I also early on was like, I need to have a room for women, for people of color, for gay comedians, for everybody that is oppressed. And so that was always my thing. And I know a lot of, and I use quote, comedians in town will say, I'm the producer of the Misfit comics or whatever,
Right.
the Island Misfit Toys is my room. But, it served me. It's been my brand, and I'm very alternative, and it just kind of goes with it. So.
And then so you've done. Obviously you do stand up. You tour also, correct?
Yep. And I'm getting to do that more now, which is exciting. Yeah.
But then you also have the anti-bullying platform.
Yeah.
You kind of use your bully pulpit, for lack of a better word, to sort of talk about these things like bullying.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how did that start? And it was. Are you still working with a partner? Is that still Josh and Gab?
So we were Josh and Gab, and then Josh had to take a break from performing full time. So we were staying as Josh and Gab, which then became extremely confusing when it was just Gab.
Right.
And so after a year of me doing by myself, Josh was like, I think we need to rebrand it as Gab Bonesso's Gab Squad, and then when we're the band, we'll be Josh and Gab.
Yeah.
So he's my manager now. He does all my booking, all my contracts, all that kind of stuff. He still helps me write all my new music. But it kind of came about. Oh my God, it's been 8 years now. Josh and I were always friendly. Like, I loved his band. He always came to support my stand-up. We always wanted to do something together. We just didn't know what. And so we had done one silly little parody song. Not even a parody song. He wrote a song about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. We performed it. My best friend, who is a teacher, was like, you guys should write kids music. It's like, it was a very, like, her little nephew was obsessed with it and then knew every detail of the assassination. She was like, what if you did something more positive?
Yeah.
So he and I created this anti-bully program because I had been bullied, he had been bullied. And we did one show and it literally just kind of took off. And the next thing we knew, this became our full-time job. Because I had been working with American Eagle prior to that doing corporate stand-up, which between the corporate stand-up and the kids comedy, that is who I am now.
Right.
Like, I've literally figured out how to perform for every single person in the world. And old Gab would have been like, it's my art, and if you don't get it, get out. And now I'm just like, no, I want to make people laugh because the world sucks. Yeah. And this might be the one time of their day they don't want to die. So that would be cool if I could help them. Yeah.
What which is harder to perform in front of and to make executives laugh or to make kids laugh?
Ooh. Well, I have a very funny story about the first time I had to write stand up for American Eagle. They so I would do doing like all these live events for them. So they put me in a boardroom with like all the new material that would be coming out in the winter collection.
Yeah.
And they're like, write jokes. So I had to specifically write humor about American Eagle product. So I'm in there for 5 hours. I write a 20-minute set.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I feel good about it. My boss comes in. He's like, all right, now we got to call the president of the company, speakerphone to the CEO of American Eagle, and I'm going to read a joke, and then he will sign off on whether I can do this joke, and then I'll have to go back to the drawing board. So I do my very first joke, and nothing, silence. My heart falls into my stomach, and then I hear, ha, there was a 5-second delay. I was like, oh my God, okay, I can do this. But then like the next joke, I'm like, it's just the delay. And he's like, nope, cut that. And I'm like, okay, I get you. But yeah, that was a really
amazing.
Weird experience. But that might have been the hardest. I have to say corporate because it was writing material in my voice about product. It was just wild. It was really wild.
I can't imagine that scenario. You all of a sudden they just turn on the speakerphone and they're like,
they dial in and they're like, this is Gab and this is the president. Hi, how you doing?
Make John Moneybags laugh right now.
I will say they paid so well.
I'm sure.
I mean, oh my God. Like the 2 years I was with them, like I remember saying to my mom, like, I made this much money this year doing art. And she's like, high five, baby. Went to Lydia's and celebrated. Yeah, it was really a good gig. But I quit it.
Yeah.
Because it was getting to the point where they wanted me to have all my social media be American Eagle, Gab Bonesso. And the anti-bully thing was just taking off. And my mom was getting super sick and I was her caregiver. So I was like, the anti-bully show is my baby, so I can be in charge if I need to take off for mom, and so that's why I chose that.
The your corporate stuff is hard. I did some freelance probably for about 10 years for this. I think it was like a quarterly magazine that went to directors of public companies. And it was ridiculous how much they paid. And it's like, some of the stuff you just kind of like swallow your soul and just go, okay, Monsanto, what a great blah, blah, blah. I'm just kidding about Monsanto. But, it's just like, all that stuff. But, that's where the money is. And I guess it's like those actors who do like, I always think about Vincent D'Onofrio. He does all these great like independent films, but then he'll go and do like a Men in Black, like a huge blockbuster to pay for his love of independent films. And so sometimes we all gotta do that.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, I sometimes have nightmares where the term colored jeggings just like goes through my brain and I'm just like, make it stop.
Do you remember, can you tell us a joke about American Eagle clothes?
Oh my God, I did do one and I couldn't believe they let me do it. And it was the difference between skinny jeans and jeggings. And I'm like, skinny jeans, you don't need to buy them. Everyone thinks jeggings are skinny jeans. And if you don't believe me that anyone can fit into jeggings, go see the movie Precious. She's not wearing skinny jeans.
Right.
Those are jeggings, man. And so I was like, I'm doing like a whole Precious routine. And I was like, am I going to be allowed to do that? And they're like, yeah, you can do that. You can do that.
Ha ha, I find that very amusing.
Oh, yeah. So it was like, I was just like, I would have to break it down in crazy terms. Yeah, that's the only one I really remember. I had a few online. I know I have some of my corporate comedy online.
Did you ever have to did you ever have to explain the joke to like something maybe that was even obvious and they're just like, I don't get it, or
I feel like that definitely happened when they were like, that's offensive. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is that offensive? And then like we had to have like a conversation about what could offend. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really and the different types of girls. So there's the American Eagle girl and the Air girl. And they were trying to try me out as an Air girl for a really long time.
Right.
But yeah, it just wasn't working out for me. I wasn't soft enough to be an Air girl. That's what they kept saying. They're like, you're a little rough. You're more AE. Wow. I'm like, okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah. It was a weird gig, but I liked it a lot. And they let me do an Oscar-style musical montage for one of the events, and that will always be like, because I was a huge Billy Crystal fan growing up, and they let me do that, and the amount of money they spent on this is absurd. But I have it online if you ever want to see it. So I
think it's always what comedians do. I just and I, not to plug other comedians, but Whitney Cummings has a new special. I don't know if you're a fan of Whitney Cummings. I like Whitney Cummings, where she apparently built one of those like $30,000 or $40,000. Like she took her Netflix advance and she built this $30,000 or $40,000 one of those sex robots.
Oh,
and she brings it out on stage to do comedy with her. You got to see that special.
Okay, I'm going to check that out.
It's really good. But that's one of those things that she kind of said, when you give a comedian money to do their own thing, you don't know what's going to come out in the end. So
no, it's the truth. It's the truth. I had an artistic residency with CMU where I got like grant money from the Pittsburgh Foundation to do whatever I wanted. Wow. And the first thing I created was an onstage blanket fort that was like a manifestation of like all the voices in my head played by actors, me trying to host a talk show with the voices in my head nagging at me the whole time. Yeah. At one point I escaped into East Liberty. I came back covered in blood, and then we sang Home by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros to close the show. It was one of the greatest things I've ever done.
Wow.
But a lot of my friends from Robinson Township came, and they literally looked like they were just all mouth breathing, like just like, what is happening now? Yeah.
And that's people who support the arts, and not just support the arts, but support your art. Like what do you want to do, artists? Like here's the money. You do what it's in Pittsburgh does have a lot of great folks and institutions that do that. You are listening to the Pittsburgh Current podcast, pittsburghcurrent.com. You can find our socials at PGH Current. Gab, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at gabbonesso.com for all my adult comedy needs, or gabsquad.com if you're in need of a mental health or anti-bully assembly program.
Fantastic. So when Gab and I met recently to talk about her working with the Current, she was in a Jaws shirt, and so I remarked that Gab was in a Jaws shirt, and she said, she's crazy about, I don't know if it was Jaws or sharks, but then I would see you have a show coming up, and there was you and like one of the sharks. Yeah. So you have an obvious fascination with sharks.
Yes.
So tell me about how'd that happen?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I've always loved sharks. My brother used to do a shark impersonation, which I would always beg him to do as a little girl. Jaws was early on a favorite movie of mine. I've always had a crush on Richard Dreyfuss, and so I just always loved them. But then in 2010, my sister went out with a bunch of friends. She came home and got basically a Jägermeister promotional inflatable shark, and she just left him in my bedroom. And I swear to God, when I woke up, I looked him right in the eyes, and I was like, "Hi, Phineas," and he said, "Hi, Gabby," and we were best friends from that moment on.
That's awesome.
And so he became a part of my comedy act.
Yeah.
I literally would write press releases to the Post-Gazette featuring Phineas the Shark in parentheses. They would print it. Like it amazes me how much like people do not read press releases.
I
and
know.
They're just like, so he has had more press than most comedians in Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, he got a few puncture holes the same year that all my family died. And it was like, I've already been like, my mom died, my brother died. How could I bring up Phineas the Shark died? So this Shark Week, I actually admitted that he has a lot of holes, but I have someone who's going to look into making a zombie Phineas for me. So I think he may come back. just like mom and dad. I take Santeria courses for that. But anyway, that's
Looking for that Pet Cemetery, are you?
Exactly. I love Pet Cemetery. The new one was cool too.
Was it good?
I liked it.
So, was it? So you do want to make public now that you're not one of those bandwagon Shark Week fans.
No,
You're
they make me sick. We don't just celebrate a week in our house. It's all year.
Yeah.
It's all year.
Shark
It is
year.
not, and that's why my shark show is always in August. Because like there's the Discovery Channel Shark Week, but then there's also the Sci-Fi with Sharknado, which is the best movie ever made. And so I like to celebrate in between the two.
Yeah.
So I always have mine in August.
my nephew, who is 13, he'll be 14 in October. He like when he was old enough, his mom let him watch Sharknado. He binged them all. And I remember he and I were going somewhere, and he said, "Hey, you want to talk about some movies that I've seen?" And I said, "Sure." And he says, "I don't know if you've seen it, but this Sharknado might be the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life." And then he goes on, the trilogy or whatever. I don't know how many there were, but he goes on and he's like, Sharknado 2 was just a little too silly for me. But then they brought it back for him in Sharknado 3. But that was funny. It's
God,
it's just,
I love it.
Yeah.
He sounds like the coolest person that ever lived.
No, he is. He's the best. Yeah, he loves wrestling, and he also loves sharks. So, that's that's amazing. So do you I was gonna do like shark flashcards for you, but I ran out of time.
That's okay. For me, my thing with sharks is they're the most picked on animal. And I
Right.
think that's also, I'm always the fan of the underdog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, stupid shark bit my leg. It's like, why are you in their living room, jerk face? Seriously, if a shark came into my house, I'm going to bite him.
Right.
So, like, I just don't know why you're surprised this is happening. You were not invited.
Well, that was the recent story. It said a shark bit like 3 people in one day or what. I'm like, why did it take more than one of you to know no, don't go back in the water?
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally the tagline of Jaws. Don't go in the goddamn water.
Right. I really hate that they blame the sharks. I'm just like, this is crazy. And I will not eat at places that serve shark fin soup. I will not. I boycott. I will call them up. It is not okay.
Yeah, and I don't think shark. Like I remember my mom, she tried to class up at dinner once, and she bought shark at Giant Eagle, and it wasn't good. And I like fish, but I was younger then. And I'm just like, I don't think people are supposed to be eating this. Like this is like
And if you're going to, I don't think you should be buying it from Giant Eagle. Their fish section is always bad. It just reeks of bad.
And this was the '80s.
Oh,
so
God.
I don't know what the shark section looked like at Giant Eagle.
I'm
in the
afraid it
80s.
wasn't even a shark.
It
Like
probably
there was a
wasn't.
stingray,
Right.
and they're just like, it's kind of a shark. Here you go.
It's one of those poisonous blowfish. You'll be fine.
Oh my God.
So do you have? And it's funny. I just realized that this is Shark Week is rapidly upon us. So do you still partake because it's still a showcase for your beloved
of course.
animal?
I do
Yeah.
encourage people to watch it. I like to watch it. The Megalodon series always gets me on Discovery
Right.
Channel. They did find a Megalodon tooth in the ocean this
Yeah.
summer. That's exciting. Is there still a Megalodon in existence? I like to hope so.
So do you watch everything with sharks?
I mean, I'm pretty into sharks. I mean, all my I have a lot of shark
Yeah.
clothes. I almost wore shark. I have so many shark shirts.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have my shark onesie. I have a shark Snuggie blanket. I have tons of stuffed sharks. I've got the inflatables.
It's like you saw the Meg.
Yeah, of course.
See,
yeah.
so I was like that for a long time in the 80s and 90s with Gary Busey. I had to watch everything Gary Busey was in. And eventually
like a
I was
shark.
just like, I was just like, he is a lot like a shark.
really is.
He'll bite you if you're in his living room, I would think.
He doesn't give 0 F's about
Yeah.
you. That's why I like Gary Busey and 90 to Sharks. So yeah, I'm all about both.
It's amazing. So what do you have? So you have the Shark Show coming up, correct?
Yeah, that on Tuesday. I have a lot of shows coming
Yeah,
up.
go ahead, give us a rundown.
But a bunch are out of town. I'm headlining my first club that's bringing me in, which I'm
Nice.
really excited. It's called the Church of Satire Comedy Club in Hanover, PA. So I'm really pumped about that. And then I got into the Baltimore Comedy Festival, so I'm going to be heading down there.
Very nice.
And then also the school year starting, so it's all happening at once. But yeah, I have a bunch of shows. I'm going to Wheeling, West Virginia in a couple weeks. I'm doing a show at Unplanned Comedy. Doing a show for the University of Pittsburgh. I just finally posted my shows online. So if you go to my website, you can find all of my shows.
So that was just an interesting mix of venues that you talked with different cities. So do you change your material around depending on where you are, or do you just assume that a person in the audience has at least somewhat of a mindset that they're at least similar to your mindset that they're gonna they're there to get your comedy, or do you still do you make West Virginia revisions, or how does that work?
So for me, that's really funny because the whole time I've been doing stand up, I've not enjoyed it necessarily. Like it was always my means to get to acting, so it was never the original love of my life. It was just this thing that I started doing, I was good at, and I'm stuck doing it. You know, like that's how I looked at it. And at the end of last year, I was kind of getting despondent in everything I was doing. I think that's just natural when you're manic depressive. And I was just like, I'm not having fun doing anything. This has to change. Like, why be an artist if you're not having fun in life? You know, I could just go work at Starbucks. And so I just made a pact where I'm like, I'm not going to write any more set lists. I'm just going to go and I'm going to feel the energy and we're going to see what happens. And I have had more fun doing stand-up. I have done more variety of spaces, and it's just working out. I just read the room. So I did a gig in Tarentum recently where driving down the road, every house had a Confederate flag, and I was like, uh-oh. And this was in June. And so I'm like, and I have a lot of lefty political stuff in my repertoire. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to... So I first start with like seeing how they feel about the Catholic Church, and I was able to get some laughs on that. I'm like, all right, so we're a little edgy. And then I work in an abortion joke, but I do it in a complete absurdist way that maybe they don't know it's an abortion joke, gets a huge laugh. And after that, I'm like, I'm really surprised because I drove down this street and I saw your flags. I mean, you guys celebrate a different kind of pride up in Tarentum. And they just start screaming laughing. So they understood I'm mocking their Confederate flag. And then it just kept going, and I could be as liberal as I wanted. I did Trump stuff. But then at the end, we're all talking. They're like, you're so funny. You got to come back to Tarentum. Smoking cigs in my face, trying to give me Coors Light. And I'm like, thanks so much. And they're like, yeah, man. You know, in elementary schools, they can't even have chocolate milk anymore. I'm like, why? And he's like, Michelle Obama. And I'm like, did you hear my... Okay, I got to get out of here, friends. It was fun. Where's my money? And then I just left.
Maybe they thought you were like... You were making fun in a loving way kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I soft-sold it enough where they weren't like, she's an angry feminist, you know? But
she must love Trump too.
Yeah, it was great. The only thing I said about Trump was, I'm like, the only thing that if he is reelected, and I didn't make a Russian comment, which I would have normally in another venue, I'm like, I'm just going to be blatant about I'm trying to find a guy for a paycheck. Like, I'm just, that's it. Like, then I can just be honest about, like, I just want your money. I don't care about anything. And they were like, woo, yeah. I'm like, okay. I just kind of... I ride the wave of the room and what's going on. But the Brillo Box, so I do a show there every second Tuesday and then one random Sunday a month. It's usually like the last Sunday or the second to last Sunday. And I headlined the last one, and I ad-libbed half my set. And I'm telling you, I know I blacked out. Like, I disassociate when I'm on stage. And at one point, my friend Arvin was like, that's such a good new bit. I'm like, I'm not doing a bit. I'm ad-libbing. You should be filming this. What did I say? Like, it gets really wild sometimes. It's literally like surfing.
Are you able to recall it? Like when they say it was the one you said about...
because it was a true story. I just happened to ad-lib because I don't... So on my YouTube channel, I have this one video that is just getting a lot of views, and I'm excited. I'm like, this could be the one video. And it's where so my mom, my dad, my brother are all dead, and I believe they haunt my house. And so I use Snapchat to find them in the house. And these filters just pop up over nothing, but only when I'm like, Mom, and then a dog filter comes up and the tongue sticks out, and I'm like, hi, Mom. You know, it's like really weird. So I made a video of all of this. It's doing a lot of momentum. So I've been putting out on social like, hey, if anyone's a medium and they want to help me out, I can only offer you views, but I'd love to bring you into my house. The first medium to reach out is a Trump supporter. And I'm just like, and this is what I ended up ad-libbing, because I'm just like, I don't think I can do, like, the room that, first of all, when my mother died, she said, I don't want flowers. I want people to donate to Hillary. And then died, like literally. So like that's what we had in her obituary. And every Republican who came was like, notice I bought flowers. And we're like, nice, our mother's dead. Anyway.
Yeah, Jesus.
So I'm like, this woman is not going to work. And my mom is not going to come for a Trumpy, or she's going to like berate the woman. Or this woman's going to open a portal to hell and the devil is going to spawn from my living room. And also a Republican medium, by definition, I'm pretty sure is a poltergeist. So I'm just like the whole thing, but I ad-libbed all of that. Like I was just like panicking on stage. And so that was, but I do believe in all of what I just said.
Are you nervous when you go on stage and you know you're just going to ad-lib the show, or at this point are you confident that it's all going to be okay?
I think because I always say having a nervous breakdown was the best thing that ever happened to me, but it is, because like after you have a nervous breakdown, everything's kind of funny. So even if the audience looks at me like they hate me, it's just like, guys, this is like a show, and I'm gonna go home and watch Criminal Minds, and none of this matters. So whatever. It doesn't bother me anymore, and also working for kids, because you don't get to rest when you work for kids.
Yeah.
Adults, you can take a breath. I have to just keep going. And I think working with kids has made me not afraid to work with adults because they're way harder.
Well, speaking of working with adults, you missed the boat by coming on to work with us, but we're glad that you're with the Pittsburgh Current, Gab Bonesso.
You know what I say? When God closes a door, he opens a better paying, more liberal one. So that's that's my philosophy.
With a lot of crazy bastards inside. I think this is the door you open.
Yes.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you on board. We're
Thanks,
very happy. And read Gab's column today. Read her This Tastes Funny with...
with Brittany Alexis.
Brittany Alexis, it's fantastic and fantastic. Also a great stand-up comedian, Brittany. And so, check out the Pittsburgh Current, currently on the stands. We have the next issue coming out. I almost said episode. Next issue coming out a week from Tuesday. It will be our Steelers/football issue. So check that out. And again, thanks everybody for all their support. Thank you, Gab, for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great weekend.
A better alternative, giving Pittsburgh a better alternative, giving Pittsburgh a better alternative. A better alternative.